Happy Friday, my friends, and welcome to the Mylio Photos coffee break. My name is Angela, and today we're going to be talking about sections in folders view and other ways that you can understand and navigate through your folders in Mylio Photos. Before we jump into today's topic, I do want to let you know that we have other sessions for you. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we host a live Q&A. These are informal drop-in sessions where you can come and join me at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, Tuesday and Thursday, and ask questions. It is an open forum. There's no set topic. Whether you've been with us for a very long time or you're a brand new user, everybody is welcome. So those are every Tuesday and Thursday, and I hope to see you at some of those sessions next week and beyond. On Fridays, we hold these coffee break sessions, which are short tutorials, usually about 20 minutes, followed up by more time for questions with either on the day's topic or anything else that might be on your mind. Next week, we're going to be talking about the art of photo curation. So the ways that you can go through your library, find your best shots, and how to make sure that those are easily accessible, and maybe some things to think about as you go through and what do you want to get rid of, what do you want to keep, what's important. We're going to talk about all of that next Friday. That should be a really fun one, and hopefully for those of you who are organizing big libraries, useful. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into our program for today, where we're going to talk about folders your way and different ways that you can navigate through the folders view in Mylio Photos. In this most recent update, there are a few things that changed. So we're going to address those, and you're going to learn a little bit about how you can make use of them or not, because they are completely optional. So first off, we're going to talk about something really fun, how to assign a custom cover photo. And this applies not just to folders, but you can do this with albums and other things in your library. But we're going to focus specifically today on folders and just making your folders view look the way you want. We'll talk about annotations. You've probably noticed that a lot of your folders have little icons on them. If you haven't messed with them, you might wonder what those things mean. We'll go over all of that today. We'll talk about the classic versus modern folder icons. There is a choice you have in there. The newer version is what's default. It's what I like the best, but you do have an option to go back to the old style. And then we're going to dive into folder sections. So we're going to go over some of the ones that are built in, how to create custom ones, move folders between sections, and if we have time, we're going to go into some more advanced stuff with marking things as a library folder in the dashboard. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in to creating a custom cover photo. This, I think, is one of the most fun and easy ways to personalize your library. The way that Mylio Photos works is it's going to use what we call photo prioritization to select a cover photo for each one of your folders. That's based on a number of different criteria. It can be images that you interact with a lot, things that you've rated with high, 4 or 5 stars, pick flags, things like that. So it's going to be looking at these photo prioritization settings and selecting images for you. Now, if you just want to stick with the default, let Mylio manage it, but you want to see what's being prioritized, you can always go here into Mylio, go up here to your More menu in the upper right, and Settings, and go here into Device Appearance. Actually, not Device Appearance. We want to go into Organization. Sorry about that. Photo Prioritization. And this controls a number of things in Mylio, one of which is what is selected for your cover photos. So you can see that if you have something that's a 5-star, that's at the top of the list, flagged, color labels, and so forth. And you can click and drag these to customize this to better reflect what you want to see. This is actually really important in the calendar view, which is not really what we're dealing with today. But like I said, this affects a lot of things in your library and basically how Mylio prioritizes what it's showing you in some of those default things. Now, if you want to go ahead and set a custom cover photo for specific folders, there are a couple of different ways to do this. It's really simple. Let's go ahead and take this one here. This is my main photos archive. I'm going to go ahead and just scroll up here. And this is a great picture, but it's from last year. I want to go ahead and update it with something newer. So what I'm going to do is I can either go into my info panel, and here into the cover, there's a little, you can barely see it, there's a little pencil icon here in the upper left. I can click on that, and that's going to pull up a grid of everything that's in this particular folder, which happens to be massive, and let me select a picture. Now for a smaller folder, that works really well. But for a folder like this that has 114,000 images in it, that's not really practical. So I'm going to actually close that out And I'm going to go into my folders. Let's go down here to 2025 and let's select, let's grab this one here. I really like this image of the black swan. So let me go ahead down. There's that photo. Click on any photo, and it doesn't have to be within that folder. You can select any picture in your library to be the cover photo for a folder. So I'm going to go there. I can right click on this or go down here to the actions menu in the bottom right corner. Either way, it's the same menu. And you go to set cover and choose folder. You can then choose which folder you want this to be the cover photo of. And I'm just going to go ahead and back out to my top level here. And I'm going to go to that photos folder, click on that and choose set. And now when I double click on my folders view to go back to the top level, that is now the cover photo for that particular folder. So you can go through and customize these to look exactly the way you want. Now, something that one of our customers in the community shared, they wanted to have colors and big titles. So you can actually go into your word processor or a graphic design program. You can create JPEGs or TIFFs of images that have what you want. You want to make it probably like a 4:6 aspect ratio, 2:3. And you want to have it be different colors. You can put different text on it. And then you can manually select and have that in there. And so you can have big block lettering, make it very custom, make it very you, whatever works best for you. So you have full control over what your folders view looks like. And I can go in and I can select custom cover photos for any of these. So that's one way to really make this your own and make it very functional for you. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the next thing, which is annotations. Now you might see different icons overlaid on top of each folder. Some of these can be turned on and off, and some of them are shown or hidden based on the size of the grid. So let me go ahead and jump back over here to Mylio, and you'll see I've got counts up here in the upper left. I've got a couple of buttons here and some information here at the bottom. If I take my zoom slider and make this much smaller, you'll notice a lot of that information disappears. So that is one way you can kind of control what you're seeing, and go ahead and zoom that back in. If you're not seeing that information, you can increase the zoom level. If you're on a mobile device, you can use the pinch and zoom, and that does the same thing. Now, as far as showing and hiding certain what we call annotations, for instance, these two buttons, they are optional to see. They're very helpful, and I'll show you what they are here in a second, but you can always go up here to the More menu in the upper right, go to Annotation, and click on this, and you can turn on or off one or both of those buttons. So if you find them to be cluttering and you don't use them, feel free to turn those off. You can do so. I find them useful, but everybody's workflow is a little bit different. So looking at what we have here on this folder, I'm gonna go ahead and make this really big so we can just take a look. And I'm gonna close up my info panel. And let's just look here at this one folder. Up here in the upper left, you're seeing a total media count for everything that's in that specific folder. Then you probably see a little folder icon if this folder has subfolders. And inside this particular folder, I have 2,977 subfolders. So that's what that's showing me right there. One thing that somebody has already asked me about in support as well is this number up here when you're looking at sections. And we'll go into this more later, but each section you have a folder count, and this is saying how many top level folders you have inside that section. So I have 1, 2 in that particular section. Now moving on to these annotations, we have tap to categorize and we have tap to sync. So these are two things that you can on the fly change for each specific folder in your library. And it can be for a top level folder or for things below. So categories, as we know, control things like spaces. And if you're sharing your library with other people and you want to categorize media in your library for a certain purpose, you can simply click on a folder and choose what category you want. And if one of the stock categories here isn't what you're looking for, you can always choose custom. That opens up the full list, and you can select whatever categories you want to apply to that folder. When you do that, that category is then applied to everything within that folder. It does what we call inherit. So every picture, every file inside that folder, including everything in the subfolders, will inherit that category. So that's what that first button is for. The second one here is called tap to sync. And this is kind of your, I would say, Dropbox-like functionality where if you know you're going to be someplace where you're not going to have an internet connection and you need to have access to higher resolution files, this is where you can set that on a per folder basis. So if you are, say, going to be going across town and you want to be sitting at your local coffee shop and editing your original quality files, you don't want to take a vault with you, and you don't want to have to connect to their Wi-Fi even though you have stuff in the cloud. So maybe you're, concerned about, private networks and unsecured Wi-Fi and things like that. You just want to work locally on your computer. Or maybe you're in your RV and off the grid somewhere out on BLM land. Whatever the circumstance, this is your way to make sure that those pictures are locally available before you're off the internet, off the grid. So what you can do is, if you just want to browse and you want to have good quality for browsing or sharing, the optimized files are a great choice. If you want to have the original quality files available locally, you can choose store original files locally. You can see this is, like I said, my main folder, 114,000 files. That would take up almost 3 terabytes. I think my computer is only 2, so it won't even fit. But you can go in and choose specific folders. So let's say I want to go in and have just my 2025 pictures available locally. That I can absolutely do, and that'll tell me how much space that's going to take up on my computer. I can click that, and then Mylio will start to sync those files locally. So that's what those particular annotations mean. Now going up here to the last little bit of information that you have at the bottom of each folder, you have the title of the folder. If you want to change what a folder is called, go ahead and click on that folder. Go into the info menu. You have folder name right here. You can simply click into this field and change it. Now, one thing to note is this does change it in your file system. So if you are sharing folders with another application, let's say you have folders that are being watched by both Mylio and Lightroom, this is going to cause that connection with Lightroom to be severed and you'll have to reconnect it. So just know that any changes you make to, say, a folder name or a file name, that does affect your file system. So that's that information there. And then the dates are based on the metadata for the information that's inside those folders. So I have things in here that I've marked as undated, and they go through May 11, 2025. So that's the information that you can find on a specific folder in Mylio Photos. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the folder style here. This is a really small thing, but some people might have noticed, oh gosh, probably 6-8 months ago, maybe it was even longer, I can't remember for sure. It's been, all kind of starts to blur together. We made folders look more like folders. So if you go into your folders view, you'll notice it's a little folder shape. It's got a little tab up here, and it looks like a traditional folder. The old style had just a square container. So similar to if you go into albums view, they looked exactly the same. So they were just squares versus having rectangles with the little tab. I like the little tab. It lets me know that I'm in folders view. It's a visual indicator of what I'm looking at. But some people might really miss that square view. That's totally cool. So the way that you get back to that is under the More menu, Settings, and Device Appearance. So go up here to the More menu and Settings. And under Device Appearance, what you'll do is go down to Use Folder Icons. Just toggle that off. So keeping that folder shape, that is the default. That's if you install Mylio Photos for the first time, that's what you're going to see. If you don't like it, you can turn that off. So that's where that setting is. All right, then moving on to folder sections. This is where things might feel a little bit more complicated because there's a lot of different options here that we can talk about. So with version 24.6, our most recent release, which was, gosh, we're going on 2.5 weeks, or is it 3 weeks now, Lori? I can't remember. It's all starting to blur. But it's been out now for a couple of weeks. Hopefully everybody here has had a chance to get upgraded and is able to use this. But some of the things that changed are that Apple and Android now have their own section. You can add custom sections. You can reorder those sections once you've added a custom section. And sections can be categorized. So you know how I talked about adding the tab to categorize on a folder? You can now do the same thing with a section. So if you have 4 or 5 top level folders in a section and everything in that section, for instance, is family history, you just now have to categorize that top level section and everything underneath it will get that category. So it's just one more level of possible organization. Now, sections are not new. They are just more visible. So previously we had the Mylio Photos library, with this update, we've got a couple of other similar sections depending on your plan, but you had the Mylio Photos library. If you had the sample library installed, it would have been shared folders. You had your social media section and so forth. What we have new now are things like if you are on a team plan or a family plan, you're going to see my family library or my team library instead of, let me go back here, Mylio Photos library. Apple and Android used to be up under the Mylio Photos library. It's now under its own section. Social media remains its own, and then you're going to have any custom sections. Now, as far as moving things around, we're going to get into this a little bit more granularly here in just a moment, but top level linked folders. So if you look in your folders view, let me just show you here real quick. If you go in here and you can see that I have a folder here on a linked drive. These ones can be moved to other sections easily, and it's just a visual change. It doesn't change anything in your folder system. If you have things that are in built-in sections, for instance, you have your Apple Photos or you have other folders up here in your Mylio library, these are not as easy to move, and when you move them, you have to move them into another folder, which does physically move them on the hard drive. So those are just some things to consider. This is meant to give you more options in how you view and interact with pictures, also to make it easier to categorize for those shared accounts, but you don't have to do anything with it if you don't want to. So it is optional in that respect. So let's talk first about creating a new custom section. In my library, I have a couple of folders here that are linked that are family history related. So what I want to do is create a family history section in my library. I'm gonna go ahead for now. I'm gonna close up my info panel just to kind of keep this a little bit more clean. Over here on the right, you have your add new folder, and right below that, there's a new icon called add new section. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that, and let's call that family history. If I can spell, history, there we go. And you'll also have the option here to add categories, which you can do later as well. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and click on that, and I'm gonna choose family history. I'll also give it the family category. So go ahead and click apply. That now has those categories and create. So now if I scroll down, you'll see I have an empty section with family history. So that's how you create a new section. The next thing you're going to want to do is moving folders between those sections. So if you have something that is on a linked folder, so in this case, you can see this is a computer with a linked folder. This is a drive with a linked folder. If you go up here, these are not considered linked in the same way. So these have to be moved around separately a little bit differently if they don't have that little link. You can see none of these have that link, but the ones that do, those can be easily moved to those new sections. So I can simply take this folder, right click on this, and say move to section. That opens up my sections, and I can say there's family history and select, and that moves it down into that family history section. I can also do the same thing with my fast photo folder, which is the source file when I'm scanning new information. Right now it's empty, but I do use it. So I'm going to right click on that, and we're also going to move to section, family history, and select. So now those are in their own section. That did not physically move anything on my computers, my hard drives. It's just a visual change here inside of Mylio Photos. I can also change, so maybe family history is the most important thing that I'm working on in Mylio. I can actually click on this little gear, and this lets me reorder my sections. So I can take this and I can move this all the way up to the top and go ahead and click out of that. And now if I go here into my folders view, family history is at that top section. And the Mylio family library is next, my social media is down here, and my Apple Photos. So you can go ahead and organize those in a way that makes sense for you. Now, when we talk about moving things from other sections, this is where things can get a little bit interesting. So things like social media, once these folders are created, so you go to social media, you do a download, you bring in your images, you can then take these folders, you can move them anywhere in your library that you want to. Now, the thing is if you invoke another download from, say, Flickr, meaning you go up here to add media and add media from an online service and you choose Flickr, that's going to go ahead and it's going to want me to log in. If you've already moved those, let me get this out of the way here, go back, close out. If you do that again, it's going to recreate this Flickr folder here in the social media section, and you will then have to move that media somewhere else later on. So Mylio is going to want to keep recreating these if you invoke another import, but you can take this media and move it somewhere else if you want. So let's say I want to just have one social media folder under my Mylio family library. I don't want to have separate folders elsewhere. What I can do, and now this does physically move things on your hard drive. So again, if these are folders that are being shared with other applications, do this with caution because it can break those connections with other apps. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new top level folder under my family library. So I'm going to go over here to new folder, and I'm going to call this social. And we're going to go ahead and create. And I want to put that under Mylio family library, which it's not letting me do. That's interesting. Oh, there it did. It did do it. I don't know why it wasn't letting me. So it did put it there. And then once I do that, I can grab my Facebook folder, right click on that. You'll notice it does not have a move to section option. What I have to do, like I said, is physically move this, and I can say move to folder, and I can go to my new social folder, select that, and that's going to physically move that into that location. So it's going to take it. You'll see now that's popping up there under social. And I can do the same thing with my Flickr and my Instagram. So that's how you move things around. If you are also somebody who does not like the fact that you have an Apple Photos folder here in its own section, or you have an Android Photos folder here in its own section, the process is exactly the same. You would just create a new folder here at this top level, and then you call it Apple Photos, or you call it My Mobile Pictures, or whatever you want. And then you would take this Apple Photos folder, right click on that, and move to folder. Again, it does physically move it on your hard drive, but that is one way you can collapse these things into a specific section. Well, just a reminder, we have our Q&As every Tuesday and Thursday. Those are at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Anybody here and anybody in our community is welcome to jump in and ask questions on whatever is, you know, on your mind, Mylio related, photography related, any of that stuff. I love having you guys show up for those. We also have our coffee breaks like this on Fridays. We're going to be talking about photo curation next week. It's going to be a fun topic. Actually, this one was one that Lori suggested, so thank you, Lori. And as always, I'm so grateful to have Lori here helping out and answering questions and sharing links, and just awesome to have her on board. So looks like I see one more question here. Why is customer support so backed up? We are still catching up from the update. There were just a lot of things that changed, a lot of under the hood things, and people have been reaching out with a lot of questions. So that high volume translates into some of these things taking a long time to get back to. So our apologies for that. We're working through them as fast as we can, and we really appreciate your patience. Okie dokie. If there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and turn you guys loose for the day. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.